Hi everybody, Andrew Reed here, Victoria, BC, and today we're going to look at in reference re Quebec, as well as two parts of the Constitution, basically federalism and amendments. So these are the first three parts of the Constitutional Law NCA exam. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So you can see on my screen here exactly what I'm looking at. So I recommend reading along. I recommend even more, make your own notes from these excerpts as much as you can. That's part of the study process with law. But you're welcome to follow along with me as I prepare my study guide. So let's go ahead and get started. In reference re Quebec. So this was a reference sent to the Supreme Court of Canada that asked three issues. Number one, can Quebec, per the Constitution, secede from Canada unilaterally? And two, can Quebec, under international law, secede from Canada unilaterally? And three, if there's a conflict between the Constitution and international law, which would take precedence? So the court was held, someone basically jumped in and said, well, can the court even do this? And the court said they're able to take an advisory role here. The court may deal by reference with issues that aren't yet ripe for, as in they don't have a case in front of them that needs to be decided. They can still deal with these cases by reference, which is what we have here. Okay, so the conclusion to issue number one was that Quebec couldn't secede unilaterally. A province can't secede unilaterally because other provinces and territories are now put at risk of having their other constitutional values affected. The analysis here, democracy exists in the larger context of other constitutional values. So federalism, democracy, constitutionalism, rule of law, respect for minorities, these are the principles of the Constitution. These are the values of it. Democracy is just one of them. It's part of all these. And so the democratic rights cannot be divorced from constitutional obligations. However, Quebec could, this was their note, proceed to negotiation addressing the interest of all Canadians, Canadian governments, and minority rights. So they could continue, because they are a democracy, they can continue trying to secede as long as they took care of all those other constitutional issues in the process. So the rule the court set here is that that in order to have a referendum, they must achieve a clear majority on a clear question. And what that actually means would need to be politically determined, and that's what a future referendum would need to look like. Okay. Issue two, international law. Could they secede under international law? The court here says a right to secession only arises under the principle of self-determination of a people at international law, where a people was governed as part of a colonial empire, where that people is subject to alien subjugation, domination, or exploitation, and possibly if they're denied any meaningful exercise of their right to self-determination. So the analysis here was that Quebec didn't meet that threshold. They're not a colonial or an oppressed people. They had meaningful access to the government to pursue economic, cultural, and other development. So conclusion, Quebec does not enjoy a right at international law on the surface to secede from Canada unilaterally. However, say if they did an unconstitutional de facto secession, like a majority said, we don't want to be a part of Canada and no matter what, and if the international community were to recognize this, then maybe there is a pathway there for secession. The court was unwilling to determine whether the Constitution or international law would win because it felt there was no conflict in context with this reference. Really, that was a big thing. I don't think that's ever been decided. Okay. The second hyperlink in the NCA exam syllabus talks about the general procedure for amending the Constitution of Canada. So boiled down to the very common basic, it just requires at least 2/3 of the provinces that have, in aggregate, at least 50% of the population of all the provinces. Now, if you read this in detail, there's more, exceptions and more specific type of amendments that it goes into, but that is the basic root of all that, which is what I'm putting in my notes. Okay, let's talk about federalism. I'm pulling some notes from outside of this case just to clarify the issue. So what federalism is, it's a system of government in which the same territory is controlled by more than one level of government. You have typically your big federal government, and then you have your little local areas, in this case provinces, and then under that you'll have municipalities and so on. And so there's a federalism here, federalism in the United States. So the authority of the parliament, the federal authority basically, they can make laws for the peace, order, and good government of Canada. You'll hear this referred to as POG. So they can make laws for anything related to POG, and also anything public debt and property, regulation of trade and commerce, unemployment insurance, raising of money by taxing people, borrowing of money on the public credit, basically accumulating debt, postal service, the all-powerful Census and Statistics Bureau, militia, military, defense, fixing salaries for executive branch officers in the government of Canada, and beacons, buoys, lighthouses, Sable Island, navigation and shipping, quarantine and the establishment and maintenance of marine hospitals, seacoast, inland fisheries, ferries between provinces, and any British or foreign country between two provinces, currency and coinage, banking, incorporation of banks, issue of money, savings banks, weights and measures, like tariffs basically, bills of exchange and promissory notes, interest, legal tender, bankruptcy, insolvency, patents, copyrights. This is the wording of the Constitution. Indians and lands reserved for the Indians. Naturalization and aliens. Marriage and divorce. Criminal law, which is important, and including criminal procedure. Establishment of prisons, penitentiaries. And so all those and everything underneath those things are federal. Anything else and all these things that follow are left to the provinces. So here's what specifically the Constitution says the provinces are in charge of. So taxation within the province to raise revenue for the province, borrowing of money on the credit of the province only, the establishment of provincial offices and bureaucracies and appointment and payment of those people, management and sale of public lands that belong to the province and of the resources that are on those lands, establishment, maintenance, and management of public and reformatory prisons in the province for the province, hospitals, asylums, charities, in and for the province, not all charities, just this is very specific, municipal institutions in the province, licensing for stores, taverns, auctioneers, other licenses to raise revenue, local works and undertaking other than such, like so not lines of steam or other ships, railways, canals, telegraphs that go between two provinces, no steamships that do the same thing, and no major works that are considered federal and not provincial. Okay, now back to what they can do. The incorporation of companies with provincial objects, solemnization of marriage, so making a marriage valid, property and civil rights in the province, administration of justice in the province, including provincial constitution, provincial courts, civil, criminal, and all the procedure related to those. They can impose punishments, the province can, fine, penalty, or imprisonment, enforcing any law of the province related to anything in this section only, and all matters of a merely local or private nature in the province, generally. Non-renewable natural resources, forestry, electrical energy within the province. So in the province, and this is 92A1, so this is going beyond now their scope of their laws, and this is breaking into just more details specifically, but this is enumerated in the NCA exam syllabus, so we're going to talk about it. So in each province, the legislator may exclusively make laws in relation to exploration for non-renewable natural resources in the province, the development, conservation, and management of those non-renewable resources, and forestry resources, including how much they can take at one time. Province can manage all that. Development, conservation, management of sites and facilities for the production of energy. That's provincial. In the province, the legislator can make laws related to the export of things from the province to another part of Canada, including non-renewable natural resources and forestry resources in the province. Production from facilities for electricity, so they can export electricity and they can make laws about that. But they cannot authorize or provide for discrimination in prices or in supplies exported to another part of Canada. So important little distinction there. So this is very important. Where law of Parliament, the federal, and a law of the province conflict, the law of the Parliament prevails to the extent of the conflict. This is a major part of constitutional law, and we'll go into it a lot further, but this is its basic source right here. Taxation of resources. In each province, legislator can tax regarding natural resources, forestry resources, electricity, but they can't differentiate between production exported to another part of Canada and production that's not exported at all. So it has to be the same price. So that was nice that they included that in there. Okay, so if they had existing powers or rights, nothing takes away from that as long as it happened before. So if there's something that they had before, that would stay in here unless, some act of Parliament has eliminated that after the fact. Okay, education, which is also in this section. Province may exclusively make laws in relation to education, but the law cannot affect any right or privilege with respect to denominational schools. Okay, these are very specific, probably things that you find more in so-called Upper Canada and Quebec. So they're specific rules with schools. You can read them and see if they make more sense to you. I'm not going to pretend like these make a huge amount of sense to me, only because I haven't been really exposed. I'm over here on the West Coast. If these schools are here, then I just haven't been too exposed to them. Okay, there's uniformity of laws in 93 that do not apply to Quebec. So there is legislation for uniformity of laws between Ontario, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, but that's so interesting, worth knowing. Maybe there'd be a short answer reference to that. Old age pensions, that is reserved for the federal. So good to know. Agriculture and immigration. So this one, both federal and provincial can make laws regarding agriculture, and immigration is mentioned in here, which is very interesting. So province can enact laws, but can't override or directly conflict with any law created by the federal Parliament. Okay, so that's the first part of this study guide. I'm going to keep these study guides coming. Hopefully you found this interesting, and hopefully you'll go and make your own notes and your own research as part of the learning process. Best of luck to you out there on these NCA exams. Next one's coming up January 16th, 17th, and 18th of 2023. So best of luck to you all out there. Stay tuned. I'm going to make a whole playlist going through each and every excerpt and hyperlink in that NCA syllabus, because that's part of my own learning process. Best of luck. Take care.